Morning.
Okay, well, I will go ahead and get us started. It's 11 o'clock. So I am Kelly Murick, and I'm the Senior Director of Products and Services for the Small Business Association of Michigan. So I'm very pleased to have everybody on the webinar this morning. We have a lot of great information to review. We have our approved partners here on the webinar who are presenting. We have Keith Huckabee, who is a partner with RiskAssure, Raj Patel, the Chief Growth Officer with Sensei, and Joe Somerdike, who's the President with MAIA Insurance Services. So SBM intentionally brought these three vendors together for an integrated, holistic approach to solve many of the problems that small business owners are facing regarding cyber risk and protection. We're aware of the challenges that small business owners are facing. Small to medium-sized businesses are increasingly being targeted by cyber attacks because they often lack the resources and expertise to protect themselves effectively. Many may not have a dedicated IT staff or may rely on outdated technology, leaving them vulnerable to the exploitation of security weaknesses. They also may lack comprehensive cybersecurity policies, employee training programs, and a cyber response plan. The cost of a cyber attack can be devastating, including the loss of revenue, damage to the reputation, legal fees, and the process to recover financially. The impact can not only be felt by the company itself, but also by your customers, employees, and suppliers. And right now in the current state, neither insurance companies or their business customers have accurate data about information risk to make or buy truly relevant products. So this all results in some pretty surprising statistics that our partners are tracking and taking into consideration when offering their services to you. So right now, I would like Keith, can you please go over some of this information that you have found that impact our members?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly. It's good to be here this morning. As we all well know, it's no longer a matter of if our company will experience a cyber incident, but when. So no business is immune to cyber risk, and small businesses like ours have become primary targets for threat actors. So as you can see here on this slide, did you know that 43% of cyber attacks specifically target small businesses? The hackers are increasingly focusing their efforts on organizations like ours, recognizing that we may have fewer resources, are less sophisticated security measures in place, and we need to be proactive in protecting ourselves from potential threats. According to recent surveys, an alarming 47% of small businesses admit to having no understanding of how to protect themselves against cyber attacks. This knowledge gap leaves us vulnerable to potential breaches and data theft. It's essential for us to invest in educating ourselves and our team about best practices for cybersecurity. The costs associated with cyber incidents are not to be taken lightly either. On average, small businesses spend a staggering $955,000 to restore normal operations after an attack. These expenses include remediation, recovery, legal fees, and potential regulatory fines. So by being proactive in our cybersecurity efforts, we can minimize the impact of a potential incident. And some more bad news here, fines and legal consequences are escalating. So the cost of these attacks are not going down. So in the last 3 years, the average finable cost per record has increased significantly from $129 to $180 per record instance. And so the regulatory bodies are becoming more stringent in holding companies accountable for these data breaches and privacy violations. So again, we must be aware of legal consequences and potential fines that could arise from noncompliance in cybersecurity standards. So with the increasing frequency of cyber attacks and potentially the devastating financial and reputational consequences they entail, it's crucial we prepare for the inevitable. So by investing in education, robust security measures, and proactive risk management, we can better protect our companies.
Raj, your team has also discovered some facts that I would like you to share.
Yes, thanks, Kelly. And Keith touched on one of the areas I was going to talk about was the cyber criminals are shifting to smaller organizations. And we see this from a ransomware report that the attacks are more to fewer employees, which means smaller organizations. And why are they focusing on small organizations? Because smaller organizations don't have the resources and the technology like the big organizations do. And it's difficult for a hacker to do a ransomware attack and ask for $10 million with the big corporation who can fight that, has the right resources. They can go to 10 small businesses and ask for $1 million and we'll be able to get those $1 million because the owners have no choice. But the flip side of that is when we talk to small business owners and say, what's on your mind? What's from a risk standpoint? Cybersecurity is really number 5. Right now, business owners are worried about supply chain disruptions. Even a coffee shop is worried if they're going to have bagels delivered this Friday. Inflation's a big impact. COVID was an impact, and who knows what the next issue would be. The labor shortage is clearly an impact. But cybersecurity is still there. It's not off the radar. But what I would say is, of all the 5 items, a business owner can do something about cybersecurity. They might not be able to do anything about inflation or labor shortage, but cybersecurity, you can do something today, and you can start today. So what can you do? Think about the basic hygiene. A lot of times we focus on ransomware and we think we need to bring a big technology, but at the end of the day, ransomware starts with a phishing attack, starts with somebody downloading malware, or starts because you didn't have a firewall put in place correctly. And so that's something that you can do. And I'm sure Joe's going to talk about the second thing is you can buy cyber insurance. And so between the 3 speakers today, those are the things that you can do about cybersecurity. And that's what we're here to help you and talk about.
Yeah, some of those numbers are staggering, and it's the exact reasons why SBAM felt that it was important to bring all of you together to help guide our members through the process of calculating and assessing the dollar value of their sensitive information and implementing a cyber health plan that not only reduces your cyber risk, but protects you if an attack should occur. So Keith, I would like you to explain how the sensitive information that's stored on our devices can make our companies vulnerable to an attack and cost them should a breach occur.
Keith, you're muted.
Oh, you're muted, Keith.
My apologies. So as I was saying, no industry is completely safe from a cyber breach. But one of the things that a bad actor is actually going to try to take from you is your sensitive information, because they can sell it on the black market, if you will. And so, we want to make sure that our clients or our companies are thinking about the data in which they're actually trying to protect. So as Raj said, you have all your systems in place, your cyber hygiene in place, but why is it in place? It's because you're trying to protect your data that you need in order to operate your business. It's also there to help you not shut down your business so you don't have access to certain things to do your business. So, but in some cases, there are industries that are more prone to some of these data breaches because they have the PHI, the personal health information or personally identifiable information and those sorts of things. And so they do, unfortunately carry a disproportionately high amount of this risk because they're not sure necessarily what's there. So and some of the things that we have done at RiskAssure, we have found that on average, when we're talking about a census form or spreadsheets, those actually occur in your system on average at least 12 times. You don't even realize it because you're sending it back and forth through emails and things like that. So it creates a new instance of that record. And then you have companies that have different seasons that might have a burst of this sensitive information. I know particularly for the healthcare industry or insurance, it can be around enrollment seasons or anything like that. But all of these files, again, as you see here on the slide, really do start to add up. And so we have an example here of, a company with 10,000 records that has this kind of information that's compromised. The amount of fines on that could be up to 1.8 million in loss, as well as your reputation and other legal fees and things like that.
So RiskAssure has created a revolutionary tool that measures the total dollar value of your cyber information and how much you could be fined in the event of a cybersecurity incident. So their risk-aware tool scans every file across every device and network for every user, pinpointing exactly where your sensitive data lives. So you can remove those duplicate files, you can better protect the sensitive information, and improve your company's overall cyber hygiene. So Keith, can you provide some more details on how that risk-aware tool works and the benefits of it?
Yeah, so as you said there, it does scan every device, every file. It looks for duplicate files, and basically the idea here is to optimize your file footprint so that you're not holding on to files you don't need to hold on to, but you're putting it out there for bad actors to come in and take. So the logic would be fewer files. It's harder for fewer files to be taken, right? So if we can optimize your file footprint and your risk value, that's already a super helpful thing. The good news is, pushing up on what Raj has mentioned earlier, this is something that's easy to get this going, get this scan going, gain visibility into your total dollar value, reduce your risk. But then it can lead to some $0 remediation tactics as well, because now you know where all this stuff lives and you can take care of those files, put them behind your firewalls, make sure they're encrypted, do all those sorts of things that Raj was talking about. So basically, that's how this can really help you understand where you should focus. Because in certain cases, when the scan occurs, some devices are going to have very little risk on it. Well, now you don't need to worry about that right now. However, there's monitoring that can be done to make sure it stays there. But then you're going to find devices, and heaven forbid, you have some with millions of dollars worth of risk on it, and that does happen. And then those are the ones you want to focus on to try to reduce that risk.
Okay. So with SBAM, our partnership with RiskAssure, we have a couple of different options available for this scanning service. Keith, can you review what those two options are at this time?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the try it before you buy it option, which is our free version of this, where you can go out to the website and see what it's all about. And basically, it's a free scan, and we'll do other scans on a 6 monthly basis. And it gives you some information about your overall risk, but it's not necessarily going to show you where everything lives. It might give you your top 5 devices or something along those lines. But in partnership, again, with SBAM, we are offering a 10% discount to the members here. So from $19.99 per device to $17.99 per device.
Yeah. Okay, so your company's completed the risk-aware scan and you discovered where the cyber risk lives within all of your company's devices. And you've taken action to delete and the duplicate and irrelevant files. And you now have the total value dollar of the cyber information that your company has on every device. So what is the next step? And this is where Senseye comes into play. With the Senseye Score Cyber Security Assessment, you answer some general questions, and based on your score, their experts take you to the next level in preparedness and protection. So Raj, can you give us some more details on this?
Absolutely. So think about cybersecurity as a chronic disease. It's like diabetes. We got to learn to live with it. It's not going anywhere. It's just getting worse. And what do we do if someone has diabetes? You learn how to live with it. And same thing, the Senseye Score is like getting an annual physical. You go get a physical, and it talks about, your health, your diet, your mental state. And that's what we're doing here is going through all the different areas of cybersecurity and giving you a score. And the score is on a 1,000-point scale. So it resonates just like a credit score. If you have a score of 800 or better, you should sleep better at night. Your cyber health is really good. If your score is 400 below, it's not a good credit score. It's not a good cyber score. And there are things that you need to do to be safer against today's threats. So we developed this. Again, it takes less than 30 minutes to do this. It's an interactive session with our cyber experts. At the end of the day, you get your number and you get a one-page summary. But it is free to all SBAM members. And I would encourage everyone to get your Senseye Score. You get, 30 to 40 minutes with the cyber expert. You talk about what you're doing, ask for advice, and you get a number in a report. So it's a very, we've done a number of these and everyone's really appreciated the value they've gotten out of the 30, 40 minutes to do this.
Right. So based on the results, you would recommend specific services that vary based on the number of employees who are active, the online users. Can you give us a brief overview of what those services are and how it can help improve their score?
Yep. So what you see on this slide is all the services we provide, and we provide what we call cybersecurity in a box. And what we're trying to do is help you improve your cyber health. So once you do your cyber Senseye score, let's say you have a score of 400, the cyber health plan helps you. Now, how do we get you to 800? How long is it going to take? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? And then everything else we provide helps you get there. So a lot of our clients don't have cyber policies. We bring them a library, and then we assign everyone a cyber advocate. The cyber advocate is like your outsourced cyber professional. They'll work with you on customizing those policies, make sure all your employees are trained. The next two items are, to me, are the most important items, cyber training and phishing. Your employees are your weakest link in cybersecurity. You can have the best technology and you can still be attacked. You can still ransomware because somebody clicked on a link or somebody set a weak password. So we provide cyber training. It's 5 to 7 minute videos every other month. And then in the off months, we do phishing exercises. And both of these items helps you because it makes your employees stronger when it comes to cybersecurity. They're more vigilant with phishing attacks. We also run external scans, persistent scans. We'll provide alerts. We'll help you develop an incident response plan. And we do that upfront. Within 30 days, you'll have an incident response plan, meaning if you had a cyber incident, what would you do? You know, the first step, obviously, you'd call Senseye, but then you'd also call the insurance company, and Joe will cover some of that too. But what we're doing with our services is giving you full package services so that if you come with Senseye, it's a package service. It's not a la carte, or there's no add-ons. And we've done it at an affordable monthly price. So if you're 1 to 20 online users, it's $750 a month. If you're 21 to 100, it's $1,000 a month, and that's it. That's straight fee. It's a year contract, but you can get out of it with a 30-day notice. So we're not holding anyone hostage. If it's providing value, you stay with us. All the clients we have to date, no one has really left, and they really enjoy the services we provide. We've been fortunate that SBAM recognized our value early on, and it was the first group that we started working with, and we do provide a 5% discount on the annual subscription for any SBAM member.
Okay, so your company's completed the risk aware scan and you have the total dollar value of the cyber information that your company has on every device. You've taken action to delete duplicate files. You've also completed your Senseye score, and their team implemented a customized cyber health plan, incident response plan, training your employees, providing alerts. So what is the next step? So now our partner, MAIA Insurance Services, is the final piece of the puzzle for your complete cyber risk analysis, assessment, and protection package. MAIA has connections with national cyber liability carriers, and with the information that you've gathered from RiskAssure and Senseye, they can place you into a policy with price and coverage that actually affect your specific needs. So Joe, I'd like you in the next couple of slides to tell us a bit about how cyber liability insurance works and why it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Kelly. The first point I wanted to make on this topic is that insurance is an important component of a cyber risk management plan, but it's not a substitute for good cybersecurity practices. There's a lot of analogies out there on this one, but it's like saying you don't forego homeowners insurance because you have good locks on your doors and smoke detectors. They all have their purposes and are essential to the overall process. So I just want to talk about the insurance marketplace next. So the insurance marketplace moves in cycles, similar to the stock market. I'm sure you've heard the term bear and bull markets. It's the same concept, except we refer to them as hard or soft markets. In general, hard markets are not a positive thing if you're looking to get coverage and you're a policyholder. With cyber liability insurance, we're currently right in the middle of a hard market, and there really isn't an end in sight over the next 24 months. Some things you'll see during hard markets, premiums go up regularly. It becomes hard to obtain policies. Coverage is reduced, and some policyholders might actually lose their coverage at renewal if they don't meet certain requirements. Another analogy here is the mortgage industry. So obtaining a loan in the year 2000 versus during the credit crunch and the financial crisis. There were very few restrictions in 2000. I mean, if you had any job, you could get a mortgage. 2009 is a whole different story. So from here, there are some key points in some areas that, if you go back real quick to those
sorry,
key
Jim.
areas, no problem. So some key areas they're looking at right now, the insurance companies, from an eligibility standpoint, is implementing multi-factor authentication, encrypted backups, and then patch implementation. So those are some key points. And Raj and his team and Keith and his team can help you with those things to make it easier to get coverage and better rates. Next slide. I just wanted to go over some basic components of cyber coverages. I think there's a lack of awareness, I think, about what the policies cover. And I'm going to touch on these points later in the presentation as well. So first and third-party coverages. In a nutshell, first-party coverages cover your business for things that happen to your business. So a cyber extortion payment, business interruption, things that happen to your business. Now, third-party coverages refer to your legal obligation to third parties. So if you are part of an organization that collects data on your customers or anybody really, you have a responsibility to protect that data. So the third-party coverage is really important, especially for any organizations that manage PII, PHI, or payment information. So these are the responsibilities to other organizations, and this will help you cover those portions. So next slide, please. I've been in the industry about 15 years, which is about the same amount of time that cyber liability insurance has existed, surprisingly. But I get a lot of common questions, and I just wanted to go over some of the most common questions I receive and misconceptions maybe that people have about cyber insurance. So a lot of people have the impression that their current GL or general liability policy covers cyber exposure. In general, this is not true. Some policies give you a little bit of coverage by endorsement, but I've never really seen one that is sufficient and covers the most likely incidents to happen to your business. For example, the third-party coverages I mentioned earlier are usually excluded, in addition to ransomware, social engineering, and data breaches. You likely have a coverage amount of 10 to 50,000, which is very inadequate for any real situation. So GL policies are designed to cover bodily injury and property damage to third parties, not necessarily financial losses. But if that's surprising to you, you're not alone. Big corporations are not immune to this. A big high-profile example is the Sony hack in 2011. If you guys remember that, it seems like forever ago. But the breach affected 77 million customers, and it cost almost $200 million. And after this was all the dust settled, it came to light that they didn't know that their GL policy didn't cover that. Their GL policy only covered physical property damage. It didn't apply to cyber. So that's a really big, high-profile example of not understanding what the policies cover. So the second most common question I get is, should I purchase a standalone policy or endorse my existing policy? Now, being in the industry, it's hard to sound unbiased here. Of course, I'm going to recommend that you purchase your own standalone policy, but I have an example I think that explains this well. A former client of mine at a former employer was a nonprofit organization in Michigan, about 15 employees. The finance director's email was compromised. This is about 4 or 5 years ago. The hackers spent 4 months in the email just learning and gathering information about the business, including their processes for fund transfers. So they set up this intricate network of rules in Outlook, and it was diverting emails to certain places. Essentially, the account holder had no idea that somebody was utilizing their email. Eventually, after those 4 months, they sent emails from that account using the business's actual process to facilitate the transfer of $1.1 million under the guise and the backstory of changing banks. So the client was insured with a specialty cyber company on a standalone policy and actually recovered $1.1 million minus $500 for the deductible. I use this example because at the time they were a new client for about 6 months to my firm, and previously only had a GL policy with a little endorsement on it. So after all the dust settled and the situation cooled off, we went back to look at their old policy just to see what would happen if they didn't purchase that. And if they didn't purchase that standalone policy, they would have received $5,000 instead of $1.1 million. And the cost of the standalone cyber policy was only $1,200 per year. So there's a lot of things that are not covered if you don't have a standalone policy. And this would be an example, a real life example from Michigan, and a business that you probably know, weren't aware of.
Mhm.
I'm going to address the next 2 points together. A lot of people have the impression that since they use an IT service or they outsource or have a cloud-based platform, that their IT provider is responsible for the exposure. So I think it's a great idea, first and foremost, to utilize providers to protect and monitor your technology. Some providers offer to indemnify your business for damages, but it's often very narrow in scope and almost assuredly doesn't cover your liability to third parties. So long story short, your IT provider might give you a certain dollar limit, maybe 10, 20, 50, $100,000 to cover damages to your business. But that third party liability I talked about earlier, as in your responsibility to your customers and the exposure there, those agreements very rarely cover those. So there's a big exposure there. And on the cloud, so there's a supply chain risk really with some of these providers as well. So some cloud providers subcontract their data storage or system maintenance to other companies, and it further just muddies the water of who's responsible. The more subcontractors an IT provider might use, those are all access points and other exposures that pop up. So it's very, very difficult to cover those two things without having your own policy. The next one I get, we don't handle a lot of sensitive data, so why do I need to be protected? This is probably one of the most common objections I hear, but the point I really want to make here is cyber liability is not just about data breaches and fines and notification costs. I have a lot of clients in the manufacturing space. Manufacturers generally hold very little personal data or sensitive information. If you think back about 5 or 6 years ago, when that first large wave of ransomware attacks happened, they didn't really steal much information. What they did was they froze the computer systems and brought these business operations to a halt. I don't know if you can imagine your business, if you couldn't operate for 2 weeks or 2 months or a year. And then afterward, do you trust if your systems are secure? Truly, if you've had a breach like that, after they restore it, you just go back to business as usual. Most people are not comfortable with that, and there's a lot of other expenses that are incurred as a result of something like this. So business interruption is a big part of cyber insurance. It provides compensation to you for lost income if your business is affected to the point where you can't operate, or let's say in a manufacturing standpoint, you have a purchase order that you have to fulfill by a certain date, and now you can't fulfill that order, things like that. So main point here is, even if you don't take on a lot of personal data like health information, anything like that, there's still a huge component that cyber insurance addresses that I think people don't think about often. And lastly, a lot of people have the misconception that it's too expensive or it's only for big corporations. As Raj pointed out earlier, cyber criminals are more frequently targeting small businesses, for one. So the size of your business is irrelevant here. But also the average premium per policy is about $1,600 in 2022. So I use that example of my former client. They paid, I think it was around $1,500, and that was the difference between recovering over $1 million and recovering $5,000. So it's all relative to what the results are if something happens. So those are the most common questions I receive.
Okay. Okay, so we've talked about how you have connections with some top liability carriers throughout the nation. So
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit about the process to receive a quote and how you assist them?
Absolutely. So I mentioned the cyber insurance industry is not very old. It's really only been around for a couple decades. And it's kind of the Wild West out there at the moment. There are a lot of different insurance carriers that are either pulling out of offering cyber insurance or they'll only offer insurance to certain industries. So we can help connect you and pair you with the right insurance carrier for your particular business. Typically, there's a 10-question application. It gathers some basic information about your business, like the revenue, the industry you're in, some of the cybersecurity protocols and practices you have in place. And from there, what we do is we take that and match you with the carrier that is best suited for your business. So I mentioned earlier, I work with a lot of manufacturers, nonprofits. I actually insure a lot of insurance agencies. So matching you with the appropriate carrier that will best fit what you're looking for and particular to your business.
Mhm. And then they also will review the coverage as the company maybe grows and expands throughout the months or the years and make adjustments as needed.
Absolutely, yeah. So as things change, let's say that's a big part of our value proposition, working with multiple companies. So let's say that we place you with a certain company that no longer wants to offer cyber insurance to your industry. We have others. We have over 10 different options for you. So we can place you somewhere else while keeping you in the same program. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Joe, for that information. And so we've heard from all three partners now, and they've explained how their services can integrate to provide you a holistic approach to cyber. But you need to take action, and SBAM has pulled together many resources from each of these partners and placed them on our website. They include a cyber insurance guide. You can click through to each of their websites and subscribe to their e-newsletters. You can view pre-recorded webinars. And SBAM also has an Ask an Expert online portal that includes cybersecurity, where you can ask any sort of cyber-related question, and a team member from Senseye will respond with fact-based information. So I urge you to visit. The link there is sbam.org, member benefits be protected. You can navigate from the homepage under the member benefits. But if you do have any questions on how to get started with either one of our partners, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is there. And at this point, I'm going to unmute the participants. And if you have any questions for our partners at this point, please speak freely. We're here to help answer anything that you would like to know. You could also use the chat feature or the Q&A feature. So Michelle, I see you have a question.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, we can hear you.
Are we going to, maybe I missed this in the very beginning, but are we going to be able to download this presentation so that we have all this information?
Yes, yep, we're recording it, and I will email it out to everybody who registered and also post it on our website.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have a question they'd like to ask? Okay. All right. Well, I would like to thank Joe, Raj, and Keith. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everything that you've done to put these services together for our members. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank
a
you.
good
Kelly.
one.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.